All right, everyone. We're back with Hammy today. Hammy actually went to the game in Knoxville last week. We're just going to go ahead and ask you, Hammy, how was the experience? What was it like being in that stadium and experiencing what was nothing short of an instant classic win for Georgia?
Dude, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I think the best away game, like a true away game that I had been to date was Texas last year, just because we kicked them in the teeth and got out of there with a big time win. Um, but this one might have topped it, obviously because of the way the game went. But I have a more deep hatred for Tennessee and those fans than I do for Texas, just because we haven't played Texas near as much as we have Tennessee. And being there and watching the hope of those Tennessee fans just leave their souls was it was comical. I mean, I sound like such a terrible person for saying that, but it was honestly amazing to watch and so fulfilling. I mean, obviously we've been spoiled going nine straight now. But just beating Tennessee, I don't care if it's our first time in 10 years or if it's for the ninth straight time. It is always fun. But we were in a section way up in the bleeds. Neyland Stadium is about the steepest stadium that I've ever been to. When you walk up to that upper level, it is like climbing a ladder. And thank goodness we were surrounded by mostly Georgia fans. I sat next to this couple, and I think they were engaged, but the girl was she was a Georgia fan, went to Georgia, and her soon to be husband was a Tennessee fan, and he was very cordial. He was very cool. He knew his place. He knew he was sitting amongst Georgia fans, but it was fun to kind of rub it in his face. But it was back and forth because that whole game was back and forth. So he would rub it in my face, and I'd rub it back in. So it was all fun and games. But we had a good time. But being surrounded by those Georgia fans was a huge plus because if you say the wrong thing in front of that gaudy orange in front of those fans, you might get your butt beat, your ass handed to you, if you will.
Absolutely.
So it was a lot of fun though. Gosh, that stadium is electric. It is loud. It's no Sanford Stadium, and being up in those in the bleeds, you can't really get a justification of just how loud it is on the field, but it's pretty loud in there. And when they scored on that opening drive, and it just looked like they could do anything at will, they were loud. And then that first third down, which came on like the second or third drive, I think, they got loud again, and it was crazy. But man, that missed field goal. So half the stadium thought it went in. I thought it went in.
It's what it looked like. Well, it's what it looked like well, not on TV. You could tell it was going to be a miss, but like
Yeah,
watching the videos from the fan perspective, it looked like it was going to go in. And
yeah,
you're right. Like you could hear the cheers from them before you could hear the roars from the Georgia fans. It
yeah.
was it
So
was
it
crazy.
was it was like, I mean, I was sitting almost directly parallel with the field goal post. So like I could basically see one post. It looked like they were in a straight line. That's how parallel of to them I was. And you see the fans like all around the lower bowl and the Tennessee fans across from us in the upper bowl, and they just went nuts. You can see the hands go in the air, and my soul left my body. I was like, oh my gosh, no. And then, sure enough, they call it no good, and then the uproar of Georgia fans. For an away game in that setting, I felt like the fans were pretty loud. At least maybe that's because I was surrounded by them, but maybe from a TV
Well, you
perspective.
can't, it's tough to tell. Yeah, it's tough to tell on TV, but
Yeah.
like it's still, as much as I could tell, it sounded like Georgia fans were pretty loud being there.
Yeah.
Like people got to give Georgia fans credit. Like as much as people may love or hate Georgia fans, give us credit for the fact that we travel.
Oh,
Like
we were
I
we
don't think
were
that's really
loud.
a debate either.
Yeah, we were trying to be as loud as we could when, we were on defense, we were screaming at the top of our lungs, so it was good. But gosh, I mean, I will say this, I'm gonna have to expose myself a little bit, but we on that last drive when Tennessee was just moving the ball at will pretty much, just like it kind of felt like they were all game, and we'll get into that, but um they crossed the 50-yard line, and it didn't look like our Georgia defense was going to stop them anytime soon. And they ran the ball again and again and again, and they got inside the 30, I think, before that false start. And I was like, boys, we got to pack it up and leave. I was with three of my buddies, and I was like, I'm not, I got to get out of the stadium. I cannot watch us just lose this game and be victims to these Tennessee fans. So I was like, boys, we got to pack it up. And we were about to leave, and then they get the false start, and we're like, okay, maybe, just maybe. And so we sat back down, not sat back down. We, went back to our seats and stood back up. But we, watched obviously the missed field goal, and then I felt like that sucked the momentum out of Tennessee. This game was a true game of momentum. It was crazy because like in the third quarter, I felt like we had the opportunity to close this game out. We kicked those two field goals, and I genuinely felt like though if we didn't, have or if we drove down and scored a touchdown on one of those drives, it would have broke Tennessee's will and it would have been our ball game and we could have not run away with it, but at least, made it a 10 point game and something that Tennessee might not have been able to come back from. So, and then Tennessee, scores on that next super long touchdown pass from Aguilar to Brazel. And I mean, it was just back and forth and back and forth. And so, I don't know, man. I'm rambling on, but I like the dramatic scenes from that game were just it was beautiful. It was any given Saturday in the SEC. It was amazing.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that it's back in Athens next year. If it happens next year, it'll be back in Athens so we can make
Yep.
it double digit win streak. That would be something special. I don't know if Georgia's ever had that in this rivalry. I wouldn't suppose so, but
No,
I'm not
the
sure.
longest streak in
Um,
this
two
rivalry is
things.
oh sorry. No. But the longest streak in the rivalry is
No, go ahead. Go
Tennessee.
ahead. No, that's actually a good point.
Yeah, so yeah, the longest streak
Is
in
it
the
in the
rivalry.
90s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And nine straight for Tennessee. So if we get it next time, we'll break that record. Get the
We'll
double
set
digits.
it.
Get that
That's
10.
awesome. That's awesome. I'll take that. I
Yeah.
would love to see that. I know all of us would. But two things that stand out listening to you. You mentioned where it was a game of momentum, and we had it in the third quarter, and it just kind of died away. Mike Bobo, I thought called a fantastic game. But one thing that really bothered me was we get up by three, and it's like we forget how to be creative on offense. And that's happened with Georgia before. Like a lot of times you'll take your foot off the gas, and that's how Georgia will lose games. Like don't take your foot off the gas when you're up 24-21. You've been explosive the whole game. Do what you've been doing. Don't. And I know the offensive line struggled a little bit, which that's not on our agenda for today, but we could get into that a little bit. But that bothered me. But I thought he called a fantastic game. And I got a comment at like halftime that was like "Fire Bobo." Did you not watch this? Did you watch a different game than me? I thought he called a great game. I thought there was a couple. I mean, it's really what it feels like with some people. I have my criticisms of Bobo, and I've been open about that, but I've also been very quick to say he had a lot going against him last year. I thought he called a great game. I don't know how it's going to look next week against Alabama, but that's something that stands out to me. Another thing that I think is pretty funny is I hear a lot of Georgia fans saying how bad they feel for that kicker. And I'm like, look, dude, that's brutal to miss that kick. And I love all people, but I can't feel sorry for a Tennessee kicker. It's not going to happen. It never will happen. It doesn't matter how bad of a miss it is, and I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. So, little too much kindness towards that Tennessee kicker, and I think we need to give Bobo the credit where credit's due. Next thing I wanted to ask you about, though, obviously Gunnar Stockton had sort of a awakening. He grew up a lot this game, is a saying I keep reading about him. Kind of some legacy moments for him in that game. He had the fourth and sixth pass to London, which was literally a perfect throw. Pretty sure he went 23 for 31, maybe 24, 300 yards, three touchdowns, zero interceptions. And let's consider the fact that the right side of our offensive line struggled heavily in this game. So the question I propose to you, and I think some people are going to hear this and be like, "That's a little too far." After one game, I think he played very well to the point where this is probably a warranted question: is Gunnar Stockton a top quarterback in the country? And if so, why? If not, why not?
I mean, I think he is playing like a top quarterback in the country. Like you said, it's maybe a little too early to jump all on the bandwagon, the Gunner bandwagon of Heisman contender and all that stuff. But I mean, I think he's a genuine top quarterback in the country. Just after that game, he stepped up in the clutch. He made the plays when he was asked to make the plays. And like you said, our offensive line on the right side was abysmal. It was pathetic. We went through three right tackles the entire game. Like And finally, with 5 minutes left in the game, Bo Hewley actually looked like a competent right tackle. And I've heard that Ernest is still hurting in his back and stuff, and so he's not completely to blame. But Bo stepped up, and I think in that role, he's earned the starting job after those last few minutes in the Tennessee game. But anyways, back to Gunner. Like you said, the fourth and sixth throw to London Humphreys, and then the second and five throw when we were on like the 40-yard line, and he got the ball to London.
Was this when he got popped?
Yes, when he got popped and I mean just delivered a strike to London, the
Yeah.
slant over the middle to Zachariah Branch on the early fourth down that we converted. Like, dude, I mean, he genuinely looks like a top quarterback, and I think we talked about it before. He's number three in the Heisman odds right now, which is crazy. Do I think he's going to win the Heisman? Probably not. I really don't think. Under Kirby Smart we'll ever have a Heisman winner, and it's not because we don't have the athletes that could. It's just more so we're kind of there's one ball and there's 11 guys on the field, and we got to spread it out. We've got more than one playmaker on this team and on any Kirby team, and so we're going to spread it out. But I do think Gunner performed like probably I'd say top 20 quarterback in the country. I think in the SEC, there's loads of talent, and maybe what we went into the season thinking those quarterbacks haven't necessarily showed up between Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers at South Carolina, and Arch Manning. All the hype surrounding those three, especially Arch. And LSU's offense hasn't looked that great. South Carolina got killed by Vanderbilt. So, like, they're probably not top three quarterbacks in the SEC anymore. I'd honestly give Joey Aguilar all the credit in the world. He's definitely a top quarterback, and it was an ultimate quarterback duel in that game. But like I said, I think Gunner's probably a top 20 quarterback in the country right now. And for us, that is amazing. That is well over the expectations probably most of us had for Gunner, and what the general media was saying. Nobody had faith in him. And if he's a top 20 quarterback in the country, the amount of playmakers we have around him, if we take a step forward in our defense, having just a top 20 quarterback, I mean, that's a national championship caliber team right there. So whatever Gunner does the rest of the season, I'm going to be excited to watch, and I'm rooting for him. And I was never off of the Gunner train. I was a little cautiously optimistic, I would say, but I'm all in now. I loved what I saw this past Saturday against Tennessee.
I think cautiously optimistic is probably a really good way to put it. And I thought after that first game, I thought he looked good. I thought he had some struggles, but that's like kind of what you see in a young quarterback. As we've discussed, though, like last week, we saw I thought some real concerns against Austin P. But I'm like, hey, this dude, he's got it. We've seen him do it before. And I mean, he balled out. He played a fantastic game. It does help to have the receiver room that he has for sure. One thing, this is off topic. Noah Thomas isn't really getting involved the way I would have expected. I don't think anyone 3 weeks ago does he have a catch yet? And it's not his fault. Like, does he have a catch yet?
I think he might have had one in the Marshall game, maybe. I know he didn't have one against Austin P. And then he was targeted against Tennessee, that one that was called back for pass interference.
Yeah, he got
Was it?
held. He got
Yeah.
held for sure.
Yeah, that was on the interception on the sideline. But I mean, like like it's kind of weird to see how uninvolved he is. I think Colby Young has definitely taken that step forward as the true number one target, the 50-50 ball guy, the sideline, back shoulder guy. And I think having Noah is just like a great problem to have, that we have two of those guys, but it's just like Colby's maybe the better wide receiver than him. And it's
Yeah.
no flack to Noah Thomas. I just think we have a multitude of wide receivers that are good in their own ways. I mean, Dylan Bell in the screen game, Zachariah Branch in the screen slant game. London's obviously looked good. And then Colby Young is that 50-50 guy. So I'm sure we'll see some Noah Thomas stardom come soon. But I think Colby Young will start getting keyed on, and same with Zachariah Branch. So maybe that'll open it up for Noah Thomas. But it is something interesting to look at for sure.
Yeah, I think Alabama would be a really good time for Noah Thomas to come alive and just have
Yeah.
a breakout game. I think that'd be a beautiful thing to see. Um, I do want to mention one thing on the line, and then we'll head to defense. Did you see the video of Bo Hewley crying as he walked off the field?
Yes, that was amazing. I think you posted it and I think we collabed on it, but that
Mhm.
was just awesome. I mean, the emotion and that's the type of dude you want playing for your team. I think, Kirby talked about it all offseason, fire, passion, and energy. If that's not fire, passion, and energy, then I don't know what is because the emotion that he played with and the opportunity that he was given, he took the most of it. And he was a key part in the Dogs closing out a victory in the overtime win. So, all the credit in the world to Bo Hewley. I'm super proud of that kid and what he did. And man, it was awesome to see that emotion. I mean, that was an emotional game, and I think getting to see him, absolutely give it all on the field for that last little bit that he played, and then just I can't really talk. I mean, it's hard to put into words how cool that moment was.
Absolutely. You could tell watching this players post game, just in general, like obviously him, but just in general, you can tell how much that means to him. And I think has a lot to do with the way they fought in that game. I think it has a lot to do with just what the rivalry is at this point. I mean, obviously it's very one-sided, but how heated it has gotten just between players and fans alike. Like it's a big deal now. Like it's one of those games that Georgia takes very seriously. I really believe that Kirby hates some teams more than he hates others. I think Tennessee's one of them.
Yeah,
So you definitely could fire, passion, energy. There's a lot more of that on this team than you could see last year. That's without a doubt,
yeah,
absolutely. And I'll tell you a lot of times. I mean, I've played a lot of football in my life. I know obviously talent is probably typically going to be your biggest key to success, but when you have guys that have fire, passion, and energy, as Kirby's honed in on, like that's going to bring team buy-in and team success, no matter how technically talented you are. Um, but yeah, I really think that's incredible that Georgia has seen this sort of buy and this sort of excitement for this team this year. Um, really positive things heading into a bye week. A lot of things to fix though too,
yeah.
and we're gonna go ahead and talk about that. Defensively, gave up 41 points. Obviously not ideal. Obviously not ideal no matter who you're playing. Before today or before Saturday, Georgia had in its last eight matchups against Tennessee had allowed 0, 12, 14, 20, 17, 13, 10, and then 17.
Yep.
Under Heupel, they had scored 17, 13, 10, and 17. I just did that off the top of my head, by the way. I just want
That
people
was
to
pretty
know that.
impressive.
I appreciate that. And then, so the highest they had scored was, I said 20, it was 23. The highest they scored was 23. They just scored 41. So clearly, they may have figured something out somewhere. I don't really care. Georgia won. I think we'll be okay. But to that point, the defense had its real struggles. Obviously, we saw some poor defensive back play. We saw some really good defensive back play at times too, especially from Janelle Guerrero. I thought he played a very good football game. Probably stood out the most out of that room. And then obviously the pass rush, there was no pass rush. I can't talk about a pass rush because there wasn't one. It was really bad and really concerning. Um, and when you don't have a pass rush, it gives the quarterback a lot of time to just sit back and pick apart a defense. Like it's really comes down a lot of that breakdown in the pass defense comes down to the fact that if you can't get at the quarterback and affect him at all, doesn't matter how good your defensive backs are, he's going to be open eventually. That's my take on it. But I wanted to ask you for the main issue. I don't want to say in general, but just in that game. Yeah, in that game and in general. Do you blame the pass rush more, the secondary more, or both? What's kind of your take? Where's the true underlying issue right now?
So if I want to start by answering it with this. First off, like you said, we obviously struggled. But entering this season, I think everybody knew, well, I would say more so after these first two games, everybody pretty much thought our defense was rock solid. We allowed 7 points and 6 points to Marshall and Austin P. And then obviously 41 against Tennessee. But entering the Tennessee game, we all thought the defense was the kind of cornerstone of this team. And we all had these question marks surrounding the offense. So my first thing that I want to note is if defense is now our question mark because we allowed 41 points and we no longer have questions on the offense because we saw what they could do against Tennessee, I am the happiest man in the world because we have the best defensive mind in college football and Kirby Smart as our head coach and one of the best defensive coordinators in Glenn Schumann. So that fires me up because as we've seen in the past, multiple Georgia teams, multiple teams around the country, it'll happen this year again. Teams get better as the year goes on because they've played more games, they've got more live action and all that good stuff. And if our offense just stays consistent, the performance that they had against Tennessee, boom, that's money. That's all you can ask for. If our defense just continues to get better because we've got two of the greatest defensive minds in our facility, then dude, we're golden. We're golden. So I just wanted to start by saying that. But there was concerns, and I think it's kind of evenly split, like you said, and like we talked about before we hopped on. Um, it's there was no pressure, and it's hard to defend. It's hard to stay on a wide receiver as a DB for extended amounts of time when there's no pressure and Joey Aguilar just has all day in the pocket. I do think throughout this year, we will not, I would almost put money on it. We will not allow 40 points for the rest of the season. And the reason I say that is because this defensive line is going to get good, and they are going to be in their ear these two bye weeks. I mean, this bye week and 2 weeks leading up to the Bama game, they're going to hear it. And this practice, these few practices in between, are going to be hell to pay for them. I think Elijah Griffin's going to be a stud on the defensive line for the far future. I mean, I'm excited to watch him for hopefully the next 2.5 years at the University of Georgia. Christian Miller is another stud, preseason All SEC. I think they can take a step forward. So I say this all because I think the defensive line is the group that struggled but has the most room for improvement because their ceiling is the highest. I think we have the studs on the defensive line to be an elite unit in the SEC and the entire country. Our defensive backs are a little more questionable. KJ's obviously one of the best safeties in the country. I love what Aguero did against Tennessee. I love what I've seen out of him. He's one of the most athletic dudes on the field at any given time. Ellis Robinson needs to take a huge step forward. We obviously saw the first long touchdown to Brazel, and that was Ellis Robinson in coverage, and he got the PI thrown on him. It's a little concerning because he still had a pass interference and they still scored a touchdown. So that's obviously, an eyesore. And then Daniel Harris, I thought Daniel Harris played that one ball relatively well. I think he was somewhat in the right position. I think he could have gotten his hips turned a little quicker and his head around, but he honestly just got mossed, and that's all the credit in the world to Tennessee's wide receiver Brad. I mean, he had a hell of a game, 3 touchdowns. I mean, like 160 receiving yards. I think he's a special talent. So my blame on that play doesn't fall entirely on Daniel Harris. I'm going on and on, but I think what will happen, I'll sum it up with this. I think the defensive line can take the biggest step forward. I think they can be an elite unit. I think our question marks will still be in the DB room. So it's going to be an interesting season, but that mid level of the defense is going to be the anchor. Those linebackers are studs. And if we can just lean in on those guys in our front seven, the defensive line takes a step forward. We take so much pressure off of that DB room. So I'm excited to see this defense, though. I think it's one of the better ones we've had in a long time, and that's saying something because we've had some pretty rock star defenses.
Absolutely, and I think to your point on the linebackers and defensive backs, for the first couple of drives, I thought they both looked lost,
Mhm.
and I think that just had a lot to do with Georgia defenses historically. We'll see this weird trend where like their first drive of the game, they come out and look like they forgot how to play football. And then by the third quarter, they look like the top defense in the country. I can't explain it. I think it's just getting more comfortable as the game goes on. But like it is drastic how it changes sometimes for that team.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, really outside of those first couple drives, I thought the linebackers looked really solid. I thought the corners played from when they scored that third touchdown up until, as you said, Daniel Harris got mossed. Up until then, I thought the corners played a fairly good football game. Was that a push off on that player? In the heat of the moment, I went to Instagram and kind of raged. I don't know if it was as much of a push off watching it back that this side. Um, but yeah, I think you bring up a very good point, and I knew where you were going with it as soon as you said that you were happy with if that's where we are, where the offense isn't a concern, because you're right, we have the best head coach in college football. I think that's non-debatable. We have one of the best defensive minds in college football in Glenn Schumann. We have a fantastic staff and talent. So all the tools are there. If Bobo can, as we said, call good games and keep his foot on the gas, I think Georgia could be really elite this year. And as we discussed, got to figure out the offensive line. I think we figured out some stuff though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty spot on what you said about the defense. Definitely some talent there. Like look at the guys we've got up front. We've got Christian Miller, who I thought played fairly well out of that group. We got Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod. I think made a pretty good tackle at one point. Elijah Griffin, I think, got in there once as well. But I mean, I think it just comes down to they've got to play some more football, and they're going to go over the film and see what they did wrong. And I think that film is such a critical thing for these guys. See where they messed up, where their stunts didn't work, where they have to execute better. Like it's just it may take time for this defensive line. And I thought this is another interesting takeaway I had from the game. I thought on both sides of the ball, for most of it, there were definitely some outlier plays on each side of what I'm about to say. But I thought for the most part, Georgia won the trenches in the running game for most of the game. There were definitely some struggles offensively early on, but I thought overall they were able to run the ball, especially in that third quarter, that first drive of the third quarter. I thought they stopped the run fairly well for a while. And then I thought on both sides, the interior just struggled in the pass game, getting to the quarterback and blocking for the quarterback. Obviously, as we got into those last couple drives, Tennessee had offensively, like our run defense kind of started to struggle. I think it had a lot to do with not setting the edge properly, or maybe they schemed up some good plays. I'm not the head coach of Georgia, so I couldn't give you a 100% accurate statement on that.
Yeah.
But I think your optimism is definitely warranted given what we've seen and what we know Georgia's capable of historically. But the last point I want to bring up, we've got probably the game that Georgia fans have circled on their calendar for the longest time. Obviously, we're all excited for that Tennessee game, but you'd be lying if you said you weren't more excited or more looking forward to that Georgia Alabama game. Personally, I think Alabama definitely, as we've discussed a little bit, they're not the same culture they were, but I think they're very similar talent levels, if not better than some of those teams they had under Saban. As Saban's tenure went on a little bit, the recruiting kind of evened out. Obviously, still getting top classes. I think the talent that they've got on this team is pretty comparable to what they've had. Maybe not as many of those X factors, if you want to say, and they've had a decent number of players transferred out, but they recruit well, very well, year in and year out. Um, I think Ty Simpson has some good potential. I think a lot of the fact that they're 14 in the country right now, I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that they played a really good Florida State team that we're now learning is probably a really good Florida State team. They played them at Florida State. So I don't think we can discredit Alabama yet. I'm much more worried about this game right now than I was 2 weeks ago when we recorded that weekly podcast. Um, but I just want to ask you, what are your early thoughts on this game, and what are some ways that we could give Alabama problems and win this game? What are some ways that we could see them take advantage of us and take advantage of some of our weaknesses and give us problems?
So I think, like you said, this is a culture game. We've obviously had it circled on our calendars forever, and this is the one that we've all been looking forward to. But this is a game where a culture and the fire, passion, and energy, those pillars of our program that we, have so leaned upon for many, many years, that's where these can show. And I think it was exhibited in the Tennessee game. Kirby is his team is the epitome of himself, if that makes sense. When we're up, and like I think back to the Vandy game, when London Humphreys was a freshman at Vandy and he scored the first touchdown when we played in Nashville. What was that? 2023. The game Brock Bowers got hurt. And in our rival,
23,
or
yeah.
our series, I wouldn't say rivalry with Vanderbilt. The past like three times they scored 0 points before that game. So I go back to that game because we actually allowed them to score some points, and it was kind of a close game in the first half. And we obviously got our stuff together and got it straightened out and won that ball game. But in that moment, you can see Kirby just fired up, and that's maybe not the best example because there's so many games like that. But when we're up and he just wants to keep his foot on the gas, that's when he's fiery. That's when we see the true Kirby Smart just all out on the sidelines. He's getting pulled back by the belt loop. But in this Tennessee game, when we're down, he's calm and he lets his players be the leaders in the room. And it's almost because of Kirby Smart, our team stayed calm. Gunner stayed calm. Our defense stayed calm. Our wide receivers, everybody stayed calm in that moment. And because they were taken after their head coach, they were learning from him. And so I think that's what will matter in this Alabama game once again. I think Bama could jump out to an early lead, a 7-0, a 10-0 lead, calm, collected, and then we get back into our groove. And then we'll take a lead and Kirby can show all the fire, passion, and energy he wants on the sideline. But I think that's the culture that we have at Georgia. And I think that's because of Kirby Smart and his team is the epitome of himself. They reflect him on the sidelines. And so that's what this game in my initial thoughts, and we can get down into the X's and O's. Probably want to do that next week once we get closer to kickoff time. But I think that's what this game is. It's a culture game. We've obviously seen the culture at Alabama change since Saban left and DeBoer took over. So like, let's show that Saban culture that we have at Georgia. That Kirby Smart has taken from Saban as one of his pupils, and let's be the better coach team. Let's be the better cultured team. Let's rock Sanford. Obviously, it's going to be loud and obnoxious in there, and I want third downs to be living hell for the Crimson Tide. Somebody texted me today. They were like, "Gosh, it's really pissing me off. Like we're kind of leaning into this Alabama narrative too much. Like, oh yeah, they have our number. They have our number. This is a mental game. This is a mental game. Like, let's have some confidence and let's be the Georgia Bulldogs that we know, the Georgia Bulldogs that showed up against Tennessee. Let's be the team that just absolutely stomps them." And I was like, well, it's a little warranted to have those thoughts that this is a mental game and Alabama just has our number. But it's kind of also true what he said. Like, let's get down to business. Let's be the Georgia Bulldogs that we know and love. And I think it starts with the crowd. And so this is kind of a call to action from us, from Saturdays in Athens, GA, and the Hammy Show, and We Are Bulldogs. Let's get Sanford rocking. I hear all this nonsense about Neyland Stadium being the loudest place in college football. I hear all of these things about Death Valley at LSU, the whiteout game at Penn State. Nah, man. Sanford Stadium. Since 2019, we haven't been beat. It's the hardest place to play in college football. I don't care if it's Death Valley. We're living hell. Let's be hell. And that's what Sanford Stadium is going to be come next Saturday. So that's what I'm fired up. I mean, I just got juiced. I got chills. I'm ready to go. I can't believe we're 10 days away still.
Dude, I'm gonna put "Let's be hell" in quotes on a t-shirt and sell it. I think that might need to be. I've just given you your next merch idea, so
Yeah, there we
you're
go.
welcome for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the hot take I've held for a long time now, I haven't really shared this on the page, I don't think, until now, and it's a hot take, but I think it's gonna happen. I genuinely do. Sanford Stadium will set the crowd noise record in this game. I totally believe it. I don't think it's. I mean, it is a hot take, and some people are gonna hear that and be like, "I hate that," but like, Georgia hasn't played Alabama in 10 years. Georgia versus Alabama is like the rivalry of the decade, and it's honestly not even close.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about some of these other games at like week 13 where they're just historic rivalries, but if we're talking about the result on the field over the last 10 years, it's Georgia Alabama. Literally nothing else can compete with that in my mind. So I'm really just excited to see what Sanford Stadium brings. Let's be hell. I think that's what we need to be saying for the next 10 days. And I don't think that anyone can be serious if they think that Alabama won't be really impacted by this crowd. I believe Georgia has the most false starts forced in the last 5 to 10. I think it's 5 years most likely.
Yeah.
Most false starts forced. Most ranked wins in general. I don't know if that's at Sanford, but I mean, there's quite a few ranked wins in Sanford. I will say I don't think Georgia's really had this big of a test in Sanford. If we're being realistic here, probably since Tennessee came and played in 2022.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say we've had a game that big in a while. It will be the loudest game that Sanford Stadium's ever seen for sure, unless Alabama comes out here and just turns into the super team that we know they always somehow do when they play us. And if that happens early on, then I could see maybe my take will fall apart. I think it's going to be stupid loud.
Yeah.
I hope my ears are still ringing at the end of the game.
Yep.
I really want to feel pain inflicted on the other team by our fans. I think it's going to be great. But a couple things you said that really brought up some good points. Georgia's culture is a big reason why I think they won last week. A
Mhm.
lot of teams you may see pre-Kirby, and I love Mark Richt. I have the utmost respect for Mark Richt, but teams like that and teams before Richt, I don't know if they get into a situation like that and pull it out. Typically, they wouldn't. I think there's an argument that they would. Typically, that's not what happens. And Kirby, uh, these players have been inducted into a culture where it's like no matter what the score is, you can win the game. There is no sense of give up among any Georgia team ever. Even as bad as things got last year, one of the things they were so impressive with to me is obviously they like as far as good as their talent was and as high as the expectations were for them, they underplayed their talent. They did not meet the expectation, but they always fought and they never gave up. And I think that's something you'll always see from a Kirby team since it's really been his team.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what, in a lot of ways, led to win last week. Obviously, I think we had better talent than them. They played. I like to say in a lot of ways, I think Georgia played a bad game, but I do have to give them credit for the fact I did not see that coming from them. I will give them credit. It burns inside of me to say that and give them credit.
Yeah.
They had some good moments in that game. They really I thought it was the first time that Heupel in several ways not even exposed our defense, but out schemed them on some plays, and you never really saw that. It was one of the first times that's happened that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I'll give them that. Uh, the Austin P game, I was going to mention the point you brought up about Kirby and the way he gets on the players. It seems like when we're in games that we should be winning by a lot and we're not winning those games by a lot. I feel like those are the times you see him get most angry. You see him throw a Mississippi State player 5 yards last year when we're barely winning that game, but we're winning it, but we're barely winning it. You
Yeah.
see him yell at the players in the huddle after the Austin P game, and I feel like when we're down in general, but especially in bigger games, he doesn't start yelling. He doesn't start like obviously he's always got fire, passion, and energy. That's literally his term. But it's like you don't see as much of that rage, I feel like, in those sort of games. I don't really know why. I think he's trying to be more encouraging in those moments. I did see him snap onto Dalen at one point last week.
Yeah.
But I think you bring up such a good point with that energy of sort of calm, quiet confidence. It translates to his team. And he's been working with, I'm sure all the coaches do this, and he's been doing it for a long time. Like he's even been open about how he works with sports psychologists to see what they respond to. Maybe one of the things this team responds to, or maybe teams in general respond to, is when you get down, just still have that calm, confident, quiet composure. Um,
Yep.
I feel like when you see that from the head man, that's gonna translate. And when you feel like when you don't see him worrying and getting pissed off, honestly, it's not gonna translate. Um, Final thing I want to mention though, you mentioned Gunner. I cannot imagine how someone could be going into their first SEC start, that first SEC start being on the road. The dude looks as calm as possible. I don't know how he does it, and I know everyone likes to say don't buy the all shucks narrative. He's a competitor, like, and I've heard that, and I totally believe it. But like the dude, you see him on the sideline, he's not nervous, he's not worried, he's not
No.
pacing. The dude is just calm. When he's got to go lead an 8 point game time drive to win or to send it to overtime in his SEC debut, he looks the same way as he did the start of the game, as he did in the third quarter, as he did halfway through the second quarter. Like I could be looking too much into it, but I don't think I am. I think it's just incredible the way he handles himself, and I think Georgia's got a true leader and a true just someone who loves Georgia. They've got that guy back there at quarterback, and I know that's something all of Dog Nation probably misses a little bit and just loves to see.
Yep.
See they have a guy they know wants to be there this year.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we got. Do you have any final thoughts on anything?
No, man, I'm just pumped. I can't believe we're 10 days away because for the next 10 days, I don't know how many hours that is. I am just locked in on Bama. I'm just thinking about Bama. So let's get there. Let's get to next Saturday. Let's be hell.
Let's be hell on a t-shirt. Thank you, Hammy. Appreciate it. Go Dogs.
Go dogs.